want to tell you a little bit about, actually a lot about my life and how I got to the point of standing here this morning. And I won't give you all the details because I'd have you here till dinner time. So anyway, I first want to recognize all those who gave all and be thankful for our freedom. And especially recognize those who survived, those who gave all, because they live with that memory.
Amen.
So trying to think about what I would talk about this morning was a little bit challenging. Life's been a little bit curly. You remember from my words of encouragement, I talked about curly. Life's been a bit curly really through all my life, and as it has with all of you, but particularly the last 6 months. This week has been really curly. There's a lot of stuff that's happened this week, and so I'm going to apologize in advance if at some point I get a little emotional. I get that from my dad. My mother and my father were awesome role models, but I get the toughness to handle stuff in life from my mother, and then I get the soft side from my father. So they're a good combination. I'm going to lead off with Luke 12:48. From everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded. And from the one trusted with much, much more will be expected. So, going through the events of my life, and particularly this last week, and I talked about not trying to straighten life out. Life is curly. Don't try to straighten it out, because here's what happens. You picture that curly ribbon as I'm focused on trying to make it the way I want it. That's exactly what I'm focused on, is the way I want it. And as soon as I let go, it goes back to the way God wants it. And the whole time I'm trying to straighten it out, I'm focused on my plan, and I'm not focused on God's plan. So it kind of takes me off track. So I'm going to lead off with a little bit of context about my life and my early life. I grew up in Colorado. I'm the oldest of 6 awesome siblings. One of the proudest things that my mom and dad talk about, if you ever hear me get to talk about it, is that they have 6 kids who look for opportunities to get together. It's not just when we're forced to at Thanksgiving or Christmas. We look for opportunities to do stuff together. I was on the phone with my brother last night. He's currently on a bicycle ride raising money for an organization that provides outdoor adventure for disabled and disadvantaged kids. So he and a friend are driving. They're riding from the West Coast to the East Coast.
Wow.
So that's quite a thing to take on. But that's the way they all are. They're awesome people. Oldest of 6, I was raised in the Catholic faith by loving and disciplined parents. My father was career Air Force, a little over 33 years in the Air Force. He was stationed at the Air Force Academy. We were really lucky because he was a professor. He got tenure there, so we didn't have to move around like most military families do. So we were, from that standpoint, pretty stable. So I went to St. Mary's High School. I graduated, went off to college pretty much because everybody else was. It seemed like the thing to do. My parents were and are, they're both still alive, thank God, and quite sharp. They're very strong in their faith. They sacrificed a lot to send me to Catholic grade school and high school. I graduated from St. Mary's High School. So in elementary school, I remember we went to Mass every single day, 5 days a week. High school, it was once a week. And early in my life, I don't quite remember how I got started, but my father was, and I don't remember even what the title was, but he was the guy who was in charge of the altar boys, okay? Scheduling them, teaching us. And so from an early age, I was an altar boy. And we really loved the reverence and the beauty of the Catholic Mass. One of my favorite memories from that time was my buddy Rick Hotar. I still remember his name, obviously. But he and I had this thing, and we took the ceremony really seriously. And if you know anything about the Catholic faith, there's a lot of kneeling and genuflecting, and a lot of, at that time, the altar boys prayed the prayers, and the audience still listened. And when I first started, the Mass wasn't said in English. It was all said in Latin. Everything the priest said was in Latin. All the prayers that we said, we had to learn in Latin. We had to memorize those prayers and say them. So Rick and I focused, we practiced a lot, that we were genuflecting exactly, I guess that's choreography, genuflecting at the same time, praying together, our voices in unison. So we took it very seriously, and the Catholic Mass was quite beautiful. And as devout as my parents were, as much as I appreciated that ceremony, there was something missing for me. Didn't know what it was, and in time kind of drifted away from going to Mass, from the ceremonial aspect of it. Didn't drift away completely from Jesus Christ, but maintained what I'll call a pretty loose relationship. I prayed, but my prayers took the form of what I'd been taught. They were formal, structured, Hail Marys and Our Fathers and things like that. Karen likes to tease me because years ago, when I was much younger, I ran and completed 5 marathons, so there was a lot of training going on. And during that time, we were raising our great-grandchildren. So I would run, I'd be out running for 2-3 hours, and I'd pray the rosary the whole time.
Grandchildren.
Raise our grandchildren, yeah.
Not great.
Not great. But looking back, my early years were good years. Again, like I said, there was a piece of me that was like I wasn't hitting on 8 cylinders. And something in my spirit was pushing me to be better, to do more, but to be better at what? To do more of what? And I wasn't really sure. So I went to high school, like I said. 2 years into high school came my first seriously life-changing event. I was home from college for the summer and received a nice letter from the United States government, the Armed Forces, ordering me to report for active duty within 2 weeks. That was a sobering moment for my mother. It was very sobering because at the time we got it, my father was already in Vietnam. He was on the ground outside of Saigon and Tan Son Nhut. So for my mother, remember there were 6 of us. That was a tough time. But on the way home from work, another one of God's little blessings, on the way home from work one morning before I had to report, before I enlisted or reported for duty, she said she heard an ad on the radio that the Navy had a 3-year program. The Army was 2 years. So I wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed, but it was easy enough to figure out that I was better off spending 3 years out at sea off the coast of Vietnam than in the jungle somewhere. So I enlisted in the United States Navy and headed off to San Diego. Life was about to get very, very real. So like I said, I joined the Navy. I served. I was assigned to the aircraft carrier United States, the USS Constellation. Did 2 tours in Vietnam. And it wasn't the experience that I ever saw myself having, but it was exactly what I needed. I lived on a ship with 5,000 other guys. The navigation division that I was assigned to was no bigger than the space that these pews occupy, and that's where we lived. That's where we, other than the eating, that's where we slept, that's where we relaxed, that's where we did everything. It was right there in that space. So learned a lot about getting along with other people and navigating those differences. I also was assigned to, as time went on, to mentor other sailors who came on board, to help them get used to it and adjust to it. We had a crusty, I'll call him Krusty, he was crusty, a crusty old chief. Chief McGee had been in the Navy for quite a while, and I can remember it was really a spiritual feeling of him taking us up on topside, up on top of the signal bridge, dark night, you're out at sea, you can't see anything except stars. Anything except stars. And the magnificence of the universe is on total display. And he's got this beautiful box, oak box, and he pulls out this brass sextant. And he proceeds to start to show us how to navigate, and we had radar and all that, but he proceeds to show us how to navigate that ship by using a sextant. It wasn't anything I remembered, I don't know that I ever really learned it, but he took the time to show it. It was a very spiritual event. Anyway, time went on, saw a lot of places, met a lot of people, was honorably discharged, returned to college to Colorado State University, earned my Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, and then began my professional career with the Emporium Department Stores in San Francisco, another life-changing event. If you've ever been to San Francisco, I loved it. I was there for about a year. Made some great friends. But in time, I decided to move to Texas, where I met up with my girlfriend, who we had dated earlier. We agreed she would work in Houston for a while. I would work in San Francisco. We'd go where we thought we were best off. Ended up in Houston. It wasn't Karen. Anyway, so I began my career there. After that, then I moved to Texas, began a 33-plus year career with Macy's department. At the time, it was Federated Department Stores. Many of you will remember Rich's. Rich's was part of Federated Department Stores. I was with Foley's in Houston, which was an organization of 64 department stores across 4 states. So that's where I met Karen. So that time period, and I kind of encapsulate this a little bit, that time period was very eventful and again, very curly. I met and married Karen, we raised her daughter. I was promoted to various jobs across the country. We started in Houston, Texas. We were moved to Corpus Christi. From there we were moved to Oklahoma City. From there we were moved back to Houston. From there to Colorado, and from Colorado then to Illinois. In that time we owned 9 homes and we rented 3. We're not moving again. Enough is enough. So we're staying put. We brought our two grandchildren into our home. It was easy to see that they did for the foster care system if somebody didn't intervene, so we did. We took them in, we raised them to adulthood, and they're awesome kids, and now we have 2 great-grandkids that get to go home at night. So that worked out pretty good. Also, during our time in Colorado, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. We went through all the motions. Karen was an awesome partner during that. And thank God that after the initial diagnosis, she recommended we get a second diagnosis. And we went to the University of Colorado Cancer Center, where we got, just by the luck of the draw, I got assigned to the chief oncologist, who was actually quite famous at the time. And performed the surgery, everything's fine, everything's been fine since then. Praise God, he was watching over it in so many ways, and including Karen pushing me to get that second opinion. So I retired in 2011 from the Macy's organization. And this is the time I was in Illinois. I was the Vice President of Finance and Inventory Control. And I retired, and I hadn't been retired but for a few months, and was recruited by somebody, the senior VP of HR who worked at Carter's, who had worked for me her first year out of school, and we kind of stayed in touch. So I was recruited to move here. And went to work for them, opened the Carter's Distribution Center over there in Brazelton, and I retired again in 2000. I don't do retirement very well, obviously, so I keep trying it, but it doesn't work out very well. But anyway, started my own consulting business. I've been doing some consulting with a consultant that worked with us at Carter's. So it was when we were in Illinois, and remember I said we kind of drifted away from going to Mass regularly and being too spiritually connected. But it was in Illinois that we really got engaged with a Bible school, a Bible church there, Manuka Bible Church, a small town there. And oddly enough, it was our grandson who had gone with one of his friends, his football friends, to church and said, hey, you guys got to come to Bible study at their house. So we went, got involved in the church, and it was at that point that I really started getting outside of structured religion and forming a relationship. And getting outside, the structured prayer is great, I got nothing against that, but beginning to develop a prayer, just as I would talk to Karen, as I would talk to Martha, or I would talk to Tracy, having that conversation with God and being able to open up and share my thoughts and my ideas and my needs, and asking for guidance, and so that's really where that started for me. And again, during all these times, remember, we're raising our grandchildren, and they're teenagers. Whew, that's where Curly really gets rich. I began to realize that I had been given everything I needed to be significant in life. I had a purpose. Even talked about purpose. I realized that I had a purpose, and I just needed to be focused on that. And what I really became aware of is that most of my life, I had been focused so much inward. I had been focused so much on me and what was going on in my life, and I really wasn't looking outward enough, and not paying attention to what was going around me, what other people needed, what was happening, where I could make a difference. So again, I'd been given much and I'd been trusted as much, and we really began to embrace this concept of stewardship. Our blessings, generally speaking, our gifts fall into 3 buckets. Time, we all get the same amount. Talent, we all have different talents. And treasure, we all have different amounts of treasure. So our blessings generally fall into those 3 categories. And I was given a lot, had been given a lot, and continue to be given a lot. So I'd like to share some of the things, the gifts that I've been given, and I recognize I've been given, and I realize have contributed a lot to shape me and what I've been able to give back. To begin with, I was given from my parents a very strong work ethic. I began working at age 10 and have not stopped since. It was, some of you are old enough to remember what a paper route is. My first job was a paper route. So I signed up to deliver the newspapers, the Gazette-Telegraph, I remember the name. And remember, this was in Colorado. And that paper had to be out 7 days a week. The goal was to have it on people's doorsteps by 7 a.m. I inherited a certain amount of customers, but we were encouraged to do more. So I delivered the papers, then I'd go out on weekends and I'd ask people if they wanted to subscribe and take on more customers. And I hadn't really thought about that until I started to write this up. But actually, I guess it must have been okay. They probably felt sorry for me. I shouldn't take credit. But they always had contests for how many new customers. You get prizes for how many new customers. I was so proud of myself because my first bicycle I got by getting new subscriptions, and that was a beauty. It was black and it was chrome, and it had a banana seat.
Oh, yeah.
I thought I had made it. I thought I had made it. But I earned it. I earned that. Speaking of earning, my mom and dad, we didn't get allowances. It's hard to be in your military family. It's tough to get 6 kids allowances, and they didn't believe it. If you wanted it, you earned it. Now, I hope you earned it. Mom helped me sometimes. Sometimes in Colorado in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, it might be snowing. So she'd get the station, she'd get up with me, she'd get the station wagon out, we'd drop that tailgate, I'd get those papers rolled up, we'd pile them on the back, I'd sit on the back of that tailgate. Here, Mom, and I'd get to the right houses and I'd throw the paper. So, but that's probably as far as it went. I was given the gift of self-discipline. I was taught, my parents set very high expectations, and they meant it. They meant it. They set high expectations for how we were to act and how we would behave. Give you a quick example. I'm the oldest of 6. My sister, who's the one down from me, my senior year, my best friend asked her to go out. So she went out, and I was at the door when Mom sent him off, and she said, be home by 11 o'clock, whatever. But the point was, she told him, don't be late. Everybody understood. They were late. So they weren't real late. They were like 10 minutes late. I was there when she got home. And she said, one more time, and you'll never go out with my daughter again. So they went out again, and they were late again. She never dated him again. She wasn't kidding. She wasn't kidding. And that simple little thing, and remember when Dr. Sandy Bailey was here, and she talked about being disciplined with your children. That was our life. They meant it. And they gave us everything we needed. Not everything we wanted, but everything we needed, and they gave us that example. I was given the opportunity to lead, and leading, I think, is important early in life. We lived at the Air Force Academy. It was right at the base of the mountains. So our recreation on weekends, a lot of times, was often to just pack up peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and whatever else might be around, and we would go up into the mountains. Well, I was the oldest. I was in charge. I was responsible for getting them up there and getting them back. I mean, there's lots of things that could have happened. I mean, there's rattlesnakes, there's all sorts of stuff. But we grew up around the mountains. We sort of understood it, but they always trusted me. My parents always trusted me to lead them and bring them back safely to home. My parents, I mentioned them. They were moral. They were disciplined. They had people of high character. They were really have been awesome life role models. To this day, continue to be great role models. Given a lot of opportunities to succeed in my career and to grow as a person. I've been trusted with great responsibility. Sometimes I just didn't get it. Why would you trust me? I'll give you another short story here. I was at Foley's Department Stores, and I was off at the University of Texas recruiting people for the executive training program. And my other part of the responsibility was if we had executive openings, I was to find candidates and recommend those candidates to whoever the hiring manager was. And we had an opening, and it was the assistant to the president. And I had given them a list. I'd given my boss, who was a senior VP of HR, I'd given him a list of 8 names. And we went off to recruit the university. Got in there late, went right to university, interviewed, got back to the hotel to check in, and there was a message for me to call George at home. I had never called George. I didn't even know his number. But there was his number to call him at home, and I thought, well, I hope this is not something I did wrong. So I called George, and you'd have to know George to fully appreciate this, but George said, the names that you gave me for the assistant of the president? I said, yes, sir. He said, I thought you told me you were interested. I said, no, George, I never said that. He said, no, I'm pretty sure you did. I said, George, I did. He said, no, I'm pretty sure you did, Steve. So now I'm with the program. I said, what do you want? He said, I need you to be on the first plane in the morning, and I need you to interview with the president and the chairman as soon as you get here. Take a deep breath, and interviewed with them, got the job. God knows why. He really, only he knows why. But it turned out to be probably one of the turning points in my career because he trusted me. He saw something in me, and it taught me about how to deal with my grandkids. He saw something in me that I didn't see. And he was willing, he had a lot at stake. If I screwed up and failed, this was on him. This was his idea. And I can remember at one point afterwards, you'd have to know the chairman, this, but I'm sitting in my office, and he plops in about a week later, and he sits down and he goes, you weren't our first choice. Awesome. That's great. But it worked out great. We developed a great relationship. Anyway, Proverbs 31:10-12. It's hard to find a good wife because she is worth more than rubies. Her husband trusts her completely. With her, he has everything he needs. She does him good and not harm for as long as she lives. So that was another gift. A great partner to share work, to share play, to share victories, failures, fears, and dreams.
Amen.
Awesome. Given the immense opportunity, the immense responsibility of raising our two grandchildren, I can't tell you, when we came to the realization that those kids were not headed for anything good if something didn't happen. We prayed and we cried and we prayed some more and cried and we knew it was the right thing to do, so we did it. And again, prayed a lot as we were raising them, and life, a lot of curly things happened in life, but we rode with it. And I will tell you, I'm a better man for having done that, and Karen's probably a better woman for having done that. They got a lot out of it. I still think I probably got the better end of that deal in raising those kids. But the most important opportunity I've had, and it's a lifelong opportunity, is the opportunity to develop a personal and close relationship with Jesus Christ.
Amen.
That opportunity has been there from day one. I didn't always accept it. It took me a while to get around to it. He never gave up on me. He never gave up on me. And certainly a much, much better person and able to give more now that I have that relationship and continue to work on that relationship with Jesus Christ. So those are the high-level details of how I got there. And again, from everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded. And from the one trusted with much, much more will be expected. And all these gifts that we're given in life, all these gifts that I've been given in life, aren't so that I can be average. They're so that I can be significant, because I have purpose, as Amy talked about, because I have purpose, and they're all different. The concept of stewardship is critical to me. I'm expected to be a good steward of those gifts, whatever they are, and we all have different ones. And I'm expected to put those gifts to glorify God. So what does my stewardship look like? Excuse me, but it looks like delivering results, and it starts with trust. It's about building trust. I am a steward of my own character and my own competence. God will help me, but I am steward of those things. Character is one part integrity, and it's one part intent, and being clear on those things. Competence is about my capabilities and the results that I deliver. And all those are important. I might have lots of integrity, but if I don't have the rest, I'm really just a nice guy. Which is nothing wrong with that, but life is about delivering results. It's about making a difference in the world. So trust leads to building relationships with my family, with my community, particularly with Jesus Christ. All of those require trust. If there's anybody here that can tell me about a relationship that you have with someone who you have no trust for, maybe afterwards, I'd like to hear about it. Probably we'll be waiting for me, but relationship requires trust. And leading, we talk about leading our lives. Sometimes we talk about living our lives. For many years, I was living my life, and it was pretty much about me. And I was a nice guy to people. It wasn't that way. But I wasn't focused on the world around me. Leading my life is a different story. And leading is important. I'm not talking about leadership position. I'm talking about leading. I'm talking about what leading means. Leading is helping others be better. That makes us better. It's about helping others grow, because that helps us grow. It's about helping others learn, because that helps us learn. So leading is really important. Living is important, but leading is really important. And that's really an important distinction. And one of the most important things about leading is that we help other people grow, and they learn to lead themselves. They learn to lead, and then they help others. So this has a ripple effect. So that ultimately is delivering results. They matter. Sometimes you'll see somebody gets results, but they violate integrity, or they do it by creating a blues for others. That doesn't bear good fruit. That might bear some fruit, but it's not sustainable. It smells bad, and it feels bad, and it tastes bad. You can't get a sustainable yield of good fruit if you sever that from character. So I thought I'd take an interesting tack to wrap this up. So the elephant in the room, some people are probably wondering, what how he feels about how the election turned out. Let me talk about that a little bit. because that was an important event in my life. It was an important event in our lives, and it was unique. So you know by now we didn't get the majority of the votes. You'll never hear me say we lost, because we didn't. We won. In many ways, we won. We controlled, and we had lots of conversation about this, we controlled what we could control. That's all I can control. So we did that, but other things come into play. And we worked really, really hard for 6 months, and it occupied our thoughts, our actions, and this week has been, after Tuesday, it's been a little bit like, what do we do? But we worked really hard to put our hearts and souls. And Karen and I are pretty close. Anybody knows us will tell you that. I'll tell you we're closer today. Because we took on a project together that was huge and worked really close. And we stayed true to our character. Throughout this, we stayed true to our character. We acted with integrity. We made our intent clear. And we made our intent very consistent. We always behaved, and we always talked about this, we always behaved in ways to build trust, because that's what builds relationships. To build trust with people. To build trust with people we knew a little bit. To build trust with people who didn't know us at all. And I ran as a statesman. I ran, and it was an opportunity to serve, not as a politician. And we didn't speak badly about anybody. We didn't engage in this stuff you see in so many political campaigns. I ran as a statesman. I ran on my character, my integrity, her character, her integrity. Most people that know us know that if you get Steve, you get Karen. If you get Karen, you get Steve. So it's kind of a package deal. But man, did we pray. We prayed daily for God. We never prayed to win. Never. Figured that was in His hands. We prayed daily for God to help us to stay grounded, to stay humble, honest, to stay kind and gracious, and to hold true to our principles and our beliefs and our values, and not to let the pressure of trying to win an election get to us. And He listened as we prayed to help us honor His plan, no matter the outcome. And we committed to that over from day one, and over again during that, we committed that we would honor His plan no matter what the outcome, and that's what we're doing. We feel great about the experience. We're very much at peace. Karen struggled the first couple of days, but probably I did more than I let on. But we're at peace with the outcome. We got a lot out of this. We've got new friends, we've got new acquaintances, and some of those people will impact our lives for the foreseeable future, and maybe forever. And the common thread throughout our campaign was personal, face-to-face, eye-to-eye contact with people across the district as much as we could. And the feedback that we've gotten has been heartwarming. It has been genuine, it's been heartwarming, and it's been deep, and it let us know, hey, you touched us. You may have not gotten the most votes, but you touched us, and that was the point. Ultimately, that was the point, because that's what you need to do to serve. And we're not going away. We're going to continue to serve. God will show us what's next. He'll point that out to us. So I wanted you to know, in case you were wondering, how I felt about all that. And Karen shares those emotions and thoughts. So in summary, I have lived, and I will continue to live in the goodness of God. His goodness is always chasing after me, has always been chasing after me. And I will continue to serve. Karen will continue to serve in whatever capacity He deems appropriate. It's on Him. Praise be to God. To Him be the glory. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.